Maya rushed through the hospital corridors, her sneakers squeaking against the polished floors. Another 12-hour shift was waiting for her, and she already felt exhausted before it even began. Working as a nurse at Chicago General Hospital wasn't just a job for her. It was a lifeline. Every dollar she earned went toward keeping her small apartment and making sure her 8-year-old son Alex had everything he needed. The morning started like any other Tuesday. Maya grabbed her usual terrible coffee from the vending machine and headed to the pediatric ward. But as she passed the main cafeteria, something caught her eye. There, sitting alone by the large window, was an elderly woman she had never seen before. The woman looked to be in her 70s, with silver hair pulled back into a neat bun. What struck Maya most was how well dressed she appeared. Her navy blue coat looked expensive, and even from a distance Maya could see the woman's jewelry catching the morning light. She sat perfectly straight, holding a simple white coffee cup with both hands, staring out the window as if she was waiting for something. Maya paused for a moment, curiosity getting the better of her. In all her years working at the hospital, she had learned to read people quickly. Patients, families, visitors, they all had their own stories written across their faces. But this woman was different. She didn't look sick or worried like most people who came to the hospital. She looked lonely. The woman's table was positioned perfectly to watch people walking by outside. Every few minutes she would turn her head slightly as if expecting someone to appear. Then she would go back to staring at her coffee, taking small, careful sips. Maya shook her head and continued to her floor. She had patients to check on and medication to distribute. There was no time to wonder about mysterious women in the cafeteria. But throughout that Tuesday, Maya found herself thinking about the woman. During her lunch break, she decided to walk past the cafeteria again. The woman was still there in the exact same spot. Her coffee cup was empty now, but she hadn't moved. Maya watched as a cafeteria worker approached the table. "Can I get you anything else, ma'am?" the young worker asked politely. The woman looked up and smiled, a genuine warm smile that transformed her entire face. "No, thank you, dear. I'm perfectly fine here." Her voice had a slight accent that Maya couldn't quite place. Maybe European, or perhaps from somewhere in the East Coast where people spoke differently than in Chicago. The woman's tone was gentle but carried something else, a kind of strength that came from years of experience. Maya noticed something else. When the woman opened her small purse to leave a tip, she pulled out a $20 bill. For a single cup of coffee that probably cost $3, that was an incredibly generous tip. The cafeteria worker's eyes widened in surprise, but the woman just waved her hand dismissively, as if $20 was nothing. The following Tuesday, Maya made sure to walk past the cafeteria during her break. Sure enough, there was the woman again. Same table, same window, same expensive coat. This time, Maya paid closer attention to her routine. The woman arrived at exactly 10:30 in the morning. She ordered 1 cup of coffee, black, no sugar. She carried a small leather handbag and wore different jewelry each week, but always something that looked valuable. She never brought a book, a phone, or anything to occupy her time. She just sat and watched. Maya began to wonder what the woman was looking for. Was she waiting for a family member, a friend? Maybe she had an appointment somewhere in the hospital and came early each week. But if that were true, why did she never seem to go anywhere else? The third Tuesday was when Maya noticed something that made her heart ache a little. The woman was looking at families walking by outside, parents with children, elderly couples holding hands, groups of friends laughing together. Every time she saw people together, her expression would change slightly. Not sad exactly, but wistful, like she was remembering something from long ago. Maya started asking around about the woman. The cafeteria workers knew her as the Tuesday lady, but didn't know her name. She always paid in cash, always left generous tips, and always said please and thank you in that gentle voice of hers. "She's been coming for months now," said Janet, one of the senior cafeteria workers. "Never causes any trouble, never complains about anything. She's actually one of the nicest people we get in here." "Do you know why she comes?" Maya asked. Janet shrugged. "Some folks just need a place to sit, I guess. Maybe she lives alone and wants to be around people, even if she doesn't talk to them." That explanation made sense, but Maya felt there was more to it. The woman's clothes, her jewelry, the way she carried herself, everything suggested she had money. If she just wanted company, couldn't she go to a nice restaurant or a coffee shop? Why choose a hospital cafeteria? By the fourth Tuesday, Maya had developed a routine of her own. She would time her breaks to walk past the cafeteria and check on the woman. It became almost like a wellness check, making sure she was okay. The woman never seemed to notice Maya watching, too focused on her own thoughts and observations. Maya started noticing small details. The woman's hands, though aged, were well cared for with perfectly manicured nails. She wore a different ring each week, sometimes a simple gold band, other times something with stones that sparkled when she moved her hands. Her shoes were always polished, and her coats looked like they came from expensive stores downtown. But it was the woman's face that fascinated Maya most. When she thought no one was looking, her expression would soften. Sometimes she would smile slightly at something she saw outside, or her eyes would get a faraway look, as if she was remembering better times. Maya began to realize that this woman wasn't just passing time or looking for company. She was searching for something deeper. Maybe she was dealing with loss or loneliness or regrets about the past. Whatever it was, these Tuesday visits to the hospital cafeteria seemed important to her. As the weeks continued, Maya felt an increasing urge to approach the woman and introduce herself. Every Tuesday, she would walk by the table and think about stopping to say hello. But something always held her back. Maybe it was respect for the woman's privacy, or maybe it was Maya's own busy schedule that never seemed to allow for unexpected conversations. The woman had become a small mystery in Maya's life, a puzzle she thought about during quiet moments at work. Who was she? What was she looking for? And why did Maya feel so drawn to finding out? Little did Maya know that very soon, their paths would cross in a way that would change both their lives forever. The Tuesday that changed everything started as the worst day Maya had experienced in months. She woke up to find Alex burning with fever, his small face flushed and his breathing shallow. Panic shot through her as she felt his forehead. He was burning up. "Mommy, I don't feel good," Alex whispered, his voice weak and scratchy. Maya's heart sank. She couldn't afford to miss work, not with rent due next week and her car payment already late. But she couldn't leave Alex alone when he was this sick. After calling in every favor she had, her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, finally agreed to check on Alex every few hours. "You go to work, dear," Mrs. Chen said kindly. "I'll watch him." "Don't worry." But Maya did worry. All morning her mind was split between her patients and thoughts of Alex lying sick at home. She called Mrs. Chen 3 times before lunch, each time hearing that Alex was sleeping but still running a fever. Around noon, things got worse. Maya was assigned to care for Mr. Peterson, an elderly patient who had been in the hospital for 2 weeks. She had grown attached to him. He reminded her of her grandfather with his gentle jokes and stories about his late wife. But when Maya entered his room for the afternoon medication round, she found his bed empty. "Where's Mr. Peterson?" she asked another nurse. The answer hit her like a punch to the stomach. Mr. Peterson had passed away that morning, just an hour after his family left. He had died alone, and Maya hadn't been there to hold his hand or offer comfort in his final moments. Maya felt the tears coming but forced them back. She couldn't break down at work, not in front of patients and families who needed her to be strong. But the weight of everything, Alex's fever, Mr. Peterson's death, the constant stress of making ends meet, pressed down on her chest like a heavy stone. During her break, Maya walked toward the cafeteria without really thinking about where she was going. She just needed a moment to breathe, to collect herself before the rest of her shift. As she approached the familiar seating area, she saw the mysterious woman in her usual spot by the window. For some reason, seeing the woman there, steady and constant like always, made Maya feel even more emotional. Here was someone who seemed to have her life together, who could afford expensive clothes and generous tips, while Maya was falling apart trying to juggle everything alone. Without really deciding to do it, Maya found herself walking toward the woman's table. She had no plan, no idea what she would say. She just felt drawn to this stranger who had become such a familiar part of her Tuesday routine. "Excuse me," Maya said softly, standing beside the table. "I hope you don't mind, but I've seen you here every Tuesday for weeks. Would it be okay if I sat with you for a few minutes?" The woman looked up and Maya was struck by her eyes. They were a warm brown color full of kindness and something that looked like understanding. The woman's face broke into a gentle smile. "Of course, dear. Please sit down." Her voice had that same slight accent Maya had noticed before, and there was something immediately comforting about her tone. Maya sat down across from her, suddenly feeling awkward. "I'm sorry, I don't usually just approach strangers like this. I'm Maya, I work here as a nurse." "It's lovely to meet you, Maya, I'm Eleanor." The woman extended her hand and Maya noticed her grip was firm despite her age. "I've seen you walking by each week. You always look so purposeful, so dedicated to your work." Maya was surprised. "You've noticed me?" Eleanor laughed softly. "Oh yes, I notice quite a lot from this little spot of mine. You're one of the nurses who actually smiles at people in the hallways. That's rarer than you might think." Something about Eleanor's warmth made Maya's carefully built walls start to crumble. "Today has been really hard," she found herself saying. "One of my patients passed away this morning and my son is sick at home and I feel like I'm drowning sometimes." Eleanor's expression grew more serious, her eyes filled with genuine concern. "I'm so sorry about your patient. Losing someone you've cared for is never easy, no matter how often it happens." She paused, studying Maya's face. "And you have a son? How old is he?" 8. His name is Alex." Maya felt tears threatening again. "He's the smartest kid I know, but being a single mom and working here, sometimes I worry I'm not enough for him." "What does Alex like to do?" Eleanor asked, leaning forward slightly. Maya couldn't help but smile a little. "He loves books. He reads everything he can get his hands on. His teacher says he's reading at a high school level already, and he's amazing at math. He helps me figure out tips at restaurants because he can do the calculations in his head faster than I can with a calculator." Eleanor's eyes lit up. "He sounds remarkable. You must be very proud." "I am, but that's part of what worries me." Maya found herself opening up to this stranger in a way she rarely did with anyone. "There's this private school that wants to offer him a partial scholarship. They say he could really thrive there, that he needs more challenging classes than what he's getting now. But even with the scholarship, I can't afford the rest of the tuition. I feel like I'm holding him back." Eleanor listened intently, nodding as Maya spoke. There was something about her presence that made Maya feel heard, truly listened to in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. "You know," Eleanor said gently, "I don't think you're holding him back at all. A child who has a mother who works as hard as you do, who cares as much as you clearly do, that child is learning lessons that no school can teach. He's learning about dedication, sacrifice, and love." Maya felt a tear slip down her cheek. "Some days I just feel so alone in all of this." Eleanor reached across the table and covered Maya's hand with her own. Her skin was soft, but her grip was reassuring. "You're not alone, dear. Sometimes we meet people at exactly the moment we need them most." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment and Maya realized something had shifted. This wasn't just a random conversation with a stranger anymore. There was a connection here, something deeper than she had expected. "Can I ask you something?" Maya said. "Why do you come here every Tuesday? I mean, you don't seem sick and you don't visit anyone. You just sit here and watch." Eleanor smiled mysteriously. "Sometimes we need to be around life even when we're not actively participating in it. Hospitals are full of stories. Beginnings, endings, hope, healing. I find it comforting to be part of that energy, even as an observer." Maya sensed there was more to Eleanor's story, but she didn't push. Instead, she glanced at her watch and realized her break was almost over. "I should get back to work," she said reluctantly. "Of course. Thank you for sitting with me, Maya. I hope Alex feels better soon." As Maya stood to leave, Eleanor squeezed her hand gently. "Some people are put in our path for a reason, dear. I have a feeling we'll see each other again." Walking back to her floor, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Something about Eleanor's presence had calmed the storm in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe everything would be okay. She had no idea how much that brief conversation would change her life. The following Tuesday couldn't come fast enough for Maya. All week she found herself thinking about her conversation with Eleanor. There was something about the older woman that had stayed with her. The way she listened without judging. The gentle wisdom in her voice, and most of all, the feeling that she genuinely cared. When Maya walked into the cafeteria that Tuesday, Eleanor was already there, sitting in her usual spot by the window. But this time when Maya approached, Eleanor's face lit up with a warm smile of recognition. "Maya, dear, how wonderful to see you again. How is Alex feeling?" Maya felt a flutter of happiness that Eleanor had remembered not just her name, but her son's situation. "Much better, thank you for asking. The fever broke on Thursday, and he was back to his normal self by the weekend, running around and asking a million questions about everything. That's wonderful news. Children have such amazing resilience, don't they? Eleanor gestured to the chair across from her. Please join me again. I was hoping you would. Maya sat down, feeling more comfortable this time. I have to admit, I've been looking forward to seeing you all week. Our conversation last Tuesday really helped me get through a difficult day. Eleanor's eyes sparkled with warmth. It helped me too, more than you know. I don't often get to have real conversations with people anymore. Over the next hour, Maya found herself sharing more about her life than she had with anyone in years. She told Eleanor about growing up with her grandmother after her parents died in a car accident when she was 16. She talked about how becoming a nurse had always been her dream, inspired by the healthcare workers who had cared for her during that difficult time. I wanted to help people the way they helped me, Maya explained. But some days it feels overwhelming. There's always so much need, and never enough time or resources. Eleanor listened intently, asking thoughtful questions and making observations that showed she really understood what Maya was going through. You chose a profession that requires you to give pieces of your heart away every day, Eleanor said gently. That takes tremendous courage. As their conversation continued, Maya learned a little about Eleanor too, though she noticed the older woman was careful about sharing details. Eleanor mentioned traveling extensively in her younger years, speaking fondly of places like Paris, Tokyo, and Buenos Aires. I was fortunate to see much of the world, Eleanor said with a distant look in her eyes. Different cultures, different ways of living. It teaches you that people are fundamentally the same everywhere. We all want to love and be loved, to feel useful, to make a difference somehow. That sounds amazing. I've never been anywhere except Chicago and once to Wisconsin for a nursing conference. Maya felt a pang of longing. Sometimes I dream about taking Alex to see the ocean, or maybe visiting a place where it snows in the mountains. But right now, just keeping our heads above water feels like enough of a challenge. Eleanor reached across and squeezed Maya's hand. Dreams have a way of coming true when we least expect them, dear. Don't give up on them. The following Tuesday, Maya arrived with a small brown bag. I brought sandwiches, she said, feeling slightly embarrassed. I noticed you only ever order coffee, and I thought, well, I hoped you might join me for lunch. Eleanor's face brightened with genuine delight. How thoughtful of you. I would love to share lunch. Maya unpacked 2 turkey sandwiches, some apple slices, and a bag of chips. It's nothing fancy, just what I usually bring from home. This is perfect, Eleanor said, accepting half of Maya's sandwich. Do you know this is the first homemade meal I've had in months? It tastes wonderful. As they ate together, their conversation flowed even more naturally. Maya told Eleanor about Alex's latest school project, building a model solar system where he had calculated the exact proportional distances between planets. Eleanor shared a story about visiting an observatory in Chile, where she had seen Saturn through a powerful telescope. The rings were so clear and beautiful, Eleanor said, her eyes distant with memory. It made me realize how small we are in the universe, but also how miraculous it is that we're here at all. Maya found herself completely captivated by Eleanor's stories. The older woman had clearly lived a life full of experiences and adventure, yet she seemed genuinely interested in Maya's much smaller world of work and single motherhood. Over the following weeks, their Tuesday lunches became the highlight of Maya's week. She started looking forward to them with an anticipation that surprised her. Eleanor had become more than just a friendly face, she was becoming a confidant, someone Maya could trust with her worries and dreams. During their 5th lunch together, Maya finally shared what had been weighing most heavily on her heart. Eleanor, I need to tell you about something that's been keeping me awake at night. Eleanor set down her sandwich and gave Maya her full attention. What is it, dear? It's about Alex's school situation. Remember I mentioned that private school that wanted to offer him a scholarship? Maya took a deep breath. Well, they called again last week. They're willing to give him a 75% scholarship, which is more than they originally offered. That sounds like wonderful news. Maya's expression grew troubled. It is, but even with that scholarship, I'd still need to come up with almost $8,000 a year. Plus uniforms, books, activity fees, it could be close to $10,000 total. Eleanor waited patiently as Maya struggled to continue. I've been looking at my budget every night, trying to find a way to make it work. I could pick up extra shifts, maybe work weekends, but then I'd hardly see Alex at all. And even if I did that, I'm not sure I could make enough. Maya's voice broke slightly. The worst part is, Alex knows about the school. He's so excited about the science lab and the advanced math classes. I haven't had the heart to tell him we probably can't afford it. Eleanor leaned forward, her expression full of compassion. How much time do you have to decide? They need an answer by the end of next month. If we don't accept, the spot goes to someone else. Maya wiped her eyes with her napkin. I feel like I'm failing him, Eleanor. He's so smart, so eager to learn. What if this is his one chance to really reach his potential, and I'm the thing standing in his way? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, and Maya could see her thinking carefully. Maya, can I tell you something I've learned over the years? Sometimes the most important lessons our children learn aren't in classrooms. Alex is watching you work incredibly hard to provide for him. He's seeing what dedication and sacrifice look like. Those are lessons that will serve him well no matter where he goes to school. But what if it's not enough? What if he looks back someday and resents me for not finding a way to give him this opportunity? Eleanor reached across the table and took both of Maya's hands in hers. That boy loves you fiercely, I can tell from the way you talk about him. And love like that doesn't breed resentment, it breeds understanding and gratitude. Trust me on this. Maya felt some of the tension in her chest ease. Eleanor had a way of putting things in perspective that always made Maya feel less alone with her worries. Besides, Eleanor added with a mysterious smile, sometimes solutions appear when we least expect them. Don't give up hope just yet. As Maya walked back to her floor that day, she carried Eleanor's words with her like a warm blanket. She still didn't know how she would solve Alex's school situation, but somehow, having Eleanor in her corner made everything feel more manageable. She had no idea that Eleanor was already working on a solution that would change their lives forever. Maya walked into the cafeteria that Tuesday with more energy than she'd felt in weeks. She had news to share with Eleanor. Alex had scored perfectly on a math competition at school, and the teacher wanted to recommend him for an advanced summer program. Maya couldn't wait to see Eleanor's face light up when she heard about Alex's achievement. But when Maya reached the familiar table by the window, it was empty. Maya felt a strange flutter of concern in her chest. In all the weeks she'd been meeting with Eleanor, the older woman had never missed a Tuesday. She was always there by 10:30, sitting in the same spot with her coffee and her gentle smile. Maya checked her watch. It was almost 11 o'clock. Maybe Eleanor was just running late, or perhaps she had a doctor's appointment that ran over. Maya decided to wait, ordering herself a coffee and sitting in Eleanor's usual chair facing the window. 30 minutes passed. Then an hour. Maya kept glancing toward the cafeteria entrance, expecting to see Eleanor hurrying in with an apologetic smile and an explanation for her delay, but she never appeared. Finally, Maya approached the counter where Janet, the senior cafeteria worker, was wiping down tables. Excuse me, Janet, have you seen the lady who usually sits by the window on Tuesdays? Eleanor. Janet looked up with a sad expression that immediately made Maya's stomach drop. Oh, honey, you haven't heard? I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this, but Eleanor passed away last Thursday. The words hit Maya like a physical blow. She actually stepped backward, her hand flying to her chest. What? No, that can't be right. I just saw her last week. She was fine. We had lunch together, we talked about... I know, sweetheart. It was very sudden. Apparently she had been battling some kind of illness for months, but she never let on how serious it was. Janet's voice was gentle and full of sympathy. She was such a lovely lady, always so kind to everyone here. Maya felt tears burning her eyes. When is the funeral? I'd like to pay my respects. Janet pulled out a small piece of paper from her apron pocket. I saved this for you, actually. Someone left information about the service at the front desk, asking us to share it with anyone who knew her. It's tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Maya took the paper with trembling hands. The service was being held at Graceland Cemetery, one of Chicago's oldest and most prestigious burial grounds. As Maya read the details, she noticed something that surprised her. The service was being arranged by someone named Jonathan Blackwood. That night, Maya could barely sleep. She kept thinking about Eleanor's warm smile, her gentle wisdom, and all the conversations they'd shared. Eleanor had become such an important part of her life, and now she was gone. Maya realized she hadn't even known Eleanor's last name until now. The next day, Maya asked for a few hours off work to attend the funeral. She put on her only black dress and took 2 buses to reach Graceland Cemetery. As she walked through the ornate gates, she was struck by how different this place was from anything in her usual world. Enormous monuments and elaborate headstones stretched in every direction, marking the graves of Chicago's wealthiest and most prominent families. The service was being held in a small chapel on the cemetery grounds. Maya arrived a few minutes early and was surprised to see how few people were there. She had expected Eleanor to have many friends and family members, given her obvious education and refinement. But there were only about 15 people scattered throughout the chapel. Maya took a seat in the back, feeling somewhat out of place among the other mourners who were all dressed in expensive-looking clothes. She watched as a tall man in his 50s stepped up to speak. He had graying hair and wore a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than Maya made in a month. "Thank you all for coming to honor my Aunt Eleanor," the man began, his voice carrying easily through the small chapel. Eleanor Blackwood lived a remarkable life, though she spent her later years preferring privacy to publicity. Maya felt another shock. Eleanor Blackwood. That last name sounded familiar, but she couldn't place where she'd heard it before. The man continued speaking about Eleanor's love of travel, her passion for education, and her quiet generosity. As he talked, Maya began to realize that Eleanor had been far wealthier than she'd ever imagined. The speaker mentioned charitable foundations, international business ventures, and philanthropic work that spanned decades. After the brief service, people began filing out quietly. Maya stood to leave, but the man who had spoken approached her. "Excuse me," he said with a gentle smile that reminded Maya strongly of Eleanor. "You wouldn't happen to be Maya, would you?" Maya was stunned. "Yes, I am. How did you—" "I'm Jonathan Blackwood, Eleanor's nephew. She talked about you quite a lot during her final weeks." He extended his hand, and Maya noticed he had the same warm eyes as Eleanor. "Would you mind if we talked for a few minutes? There are some things Eleanor wanted you to know." Maya nodded, unable to speak. They walked to a quiet bench beneath a large oak tree, away from the other mourners. "First, I want you to know how much your friendship meant to Eleanor," Jonathan began. "She told me about your Tuesday conversations, about your son Alex, about your dreams and struggles. She said talking with you brought her more joy than anything else in her final months." Tears began rolling down Maya's cheeks. "She was special to me, too. I had no idea she was sick." Jonathan's expression grew sad. Eleanor was very private about her illness. She had a rare form of cancer that she'd been fighting for over a year. She refused most treatments because she wanted to live her remaining time on her own terms. "But why the hospital cafeteria? Why every Tuesday?" Jonathan smiled slightly. "She was receiving a treatment there that helped with her symptoms. But honestly, I think she kept going back because she found something there she'd been missing for years. Genuine human connection." Eleanor had been wealthy her entire life, and she often said it was difficult to know if people cared about her or just her money. Maya wiped her eyes with a tissue Jonathan offered her. "I never knew she had money. She just seemed like a lonely woman who needed a friend. And that," Jonathan said, "is exactly why she treasured your friendship so much. You saw her as Eleanor, just Eleanor. Not as the widow of one of Chicago's biggest real estate developers. Not as the woman whose charitable foundation has donated millions to hospitals and schools. Just as a person who needed kindness." Maya felt overwhelmed. "Eleanor's charitable foundation?" "The Blackwood Foundation. Maybe you've heard of it. We've funded scholarships, medical research, community programs throughout the city." Jonathan paused, studying Maya's face. Eleanor left very specific instructions about some final donations she wanted to make. She was particularly interested in supporting education for gifted children whose families couldn't afford private schooling. Something in his tone made Maya look at him more closely. There was something meaningful in his expression, as if he was trying to tell her something without saying it directly. "Maya," Jonathan continued carefully, "Eleanor also left some personal instructions. She wanted to make sure that the people who showed her genuine kindness in her final months knew how much it meant to her." Maya felt her heart beginning to race, though she wasn't sure why. There was something in Jonathan's voice, something that suggested this conversation was about to become much more important than she'd expected. "Would you be willing to meet with me next week?" Jonathan asked. "There are some things Eleanor wanted you to have and some decisions she asked me to discuss with you." Maya nodded, still feeling stunned by everything she'd learned. Eleanor hadn't just been a lonely woman looking for conversation. She'd been someone with the power to change lives, someone who had chosen to spend her final months sitting in a hospital cafeteria, finding friendship with a struggling single mother. As Maya rode the bus home that evening, she couldn't stop thinking about all the conversations she'd had with Eleanor. All those times Eleanor had listened to her worries about Alex's education. All those gentle reassurances that solutions sometimes appeared when you least expected them. Maya had a feeling that Eleanor had been planning something all along. Maya spent the entire week thinking about her conversation with Jonathan Blackwood. Every time she walked past the empty table in the cafeteria where Eleanor used to sit, she felt a deep ache in her chest. The space seemed so much emptier now, not just because Eleanor was gone, but because Maya was beginning to understand how much she had truly lost. Alex noticed his mother's sadness right away. "Mom, are you okay? You seem really quiet lately." Maya pulled her son close on the couch that evening. "Remember the lady I told you about? The one I had lunch with on Tuesdays at work? She passed away last week." Alex's face grew serious. He was only 8, but he had an unusual ability to understand emotions. "Were you friends with her?" "Yes, we were. She was very kind and she always asked about you. She would have loved to meet you." Maya's voice caught slightly. "She thought you sounded very special." "I'm sorry, Mom. I know it's hard when someone you care about goes away." Maya hugged Alex tighter, amazed as always by his wisdom and compassion. She thought about Eleanor's words about how much Alex was learning just by watching how hard Maya worked for their family. The following Wednesday, Maya met Jonathan at a small coffee shop downtown. She had taken a longer lunch break and felt nervous about missing work. But Jonathan had insisted the meeting was important. When she arrived, he was already there, sitting at a corner table with a leather briefcase beside him. "Thank you for coming, Maya," he said as she sat down. "I know this has been a difficult time for you." Maya accepted the coffee he ordered for her and waited, unsure what to expect. Jonathan opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Before we begin, I want you to understand something about Eleanor," Jonathan said. "My aunt was one of the most generous people I've ever known, but she was also very careful about her generosity. She had learned over the years that simply giving people money could sometimes do more harm than good. She preferred to help people in ways that honored their dignity and supported their dreams." Maya nodded, though she wasn't sure where this conversation was heading. "Eleanor told me about your son Alex's situation with the private school. She said you were worried about the tuition, even with the scholarship they offered." Maya felt her cheeks flush. "I probably shouldn't have burdened her with my problems. I don't usually talk about personal things with people I barely know. But that's just it," Jonathan said gently. "Eleanor felt like she knew you very well. She said your Tuesday conversations were the most honest, genuine talk she'd had in years. You treated her like a friend, not like someone who might have something to give you." Jonathan opened the envelope and pulled out several documents. "Eleanor asked me to establish something called the Eleanor Blackwood Education Fund. It's specifically designed to help children like Alex, bright kids whose families work hard but don't have the financial resources for certain opportunities." Maya's heart began to race. "What does that mean?" "It means that Alex's tuition at the private school is completely covered. Not just this year, but through his graduation from high school. Everything. Tuition, books, uniforms, activity fees, even field trips." Maya stared at Jonathan, unable to process what she was hearing. "I don't understand." That's tens of thousands of dollars. Eleanor had very specific instructions about this. She said that every child deserves the chance to reach their full potential, regardless of their family's financial situation. She was particularly moved by how hard you work to provide for Alex, and how much you worry about his future. Tears started flowing down Maya's cheeks. "This can't be real. People don't just do things like this." Jonathan smiled, and again Maya was struck by how much his expression reminded her of Eleanor. "Eleanor did things like this all the time, just usually not so personally. She said that meeting you reminded her why she started giving away money in the first place, to help people who truly deserved it, but never asked for it." Maya was crying too hard to speak. The weight of months of worry about Alex's education, all those sleepless nights trying to figure out how to make the numbers work, suddenly lifted from her shoulders. "But that's not all," Jonathan continued gently. He pulled out another set of documents. "Eleanor also wanted to make sure you had some stability in your own life. She established a small trust fund that will help with your living expenses and give you some opportunities you might not have otherwise. What kind of opportunities? Well, for one thing, there's enough money for you to buy a modest house if you choose to. Eleanor said she hated the idea of you and Alex moving every few years because of rent increases. She wanted you to have a place that was truly yours. Maya put her hands over her face, overwhelmed. This is too much. I can't accept all of this. It doesn't feel right. Jonathan leaned forward. Maya, can I tell you something Eleanor said about you? She said you were the kind of person who gives more than you take, who works harder than you complain, and who puts others before yourself even when you're struggling. She said the world needs more people like you and fewer people like her. Fewer people like her? But she was wonderful. She was, but she also carried a lot of guilt about having so much money when others had so little. Meeting you, seeing how much joy you could find even in difficult circumstances, how much love you had for your son despite all your worries. It gave her peace in her final months. Jonathan pulled out one more document. There's also money set aside for you to continue your education if you want to. Eleanor noticed how passionate you are about nursing, and she thought you might like to pursue more advanced degrees someday. Maybe become a nurse practitioner, or get into hospital administration, or even become a teacher. Maya looked up at him through her tears. Why? Why would she do all this for someone she barely knew? Because she said you reminded her of herself at your age, before she married into wealth. She grew up poor, worked multiple jobs to put herself through college, struggled to make ends meet. She never forgot what that felt like. Jonathan's voice grew softer, and because in those last few months when she was facing the end of her life, you gave her something more valuable than money could buy, genuine friendship and kindness with no expectations in return. Maya sat in stunned silence, trying to absorb everything she had heard. Her entire life had just changed in the span of 30 minutes. There's one more thing, Jonathan said, reaching into his briefcase again. Eleanor asked me to give this to you personally. He handed Maya a sealed envelope with her name written in Eleanor's careful handwriting. Maya opened it with trembling fingers and found a handwritten letter. My dear Maya, it began. If you are reading this, then I am no longer able to tell you in person how much your friendship has meant to me. You gave an old woman the gift of feeling useful and cared for in her final months. You listened to my stories, shared your dreams, and treated me like family when I had no family left. The money I'm leaving you is not charity, it's gratitude. Use it to build the life you and Alex deserve. Watch him grow into the remarkable man I know he will become. And remember that sometimes the kindness we show to strangers comes back to us in ways we never expect. You were my guardian angel, Maya, though you probably never realized it. Thank you for everything. With love and gratitude, Eleanor. Maya clutched the letter to her chest, sobbing. Jonathan waited patiently, understanding that she needed time to process not just the gifts, but the love behind them. When Maya finally looked up, she saw that Jonathan's eyes were also wet. Eleanor was right about you, he said quietly. You really are someone special. 3 months later, Maya stood in the backyard of her new house, watching Alex kick a soccer ball around the small lawn. The house wasn't large or fancy, but it was theirs. Alex's room had built-in bookshelves that were already overflowing with new books, and Maya had set up a small office where she was studying for her nurse practitioner program. Alex ran over to her, his face flushed with happiness. Mom, I love our house. And I love my new school. My science teacher says I can help with the advanced chemistry experiments next semester. Maya hugged her son tightly. I'm so glad, sweetheart. You deserve every opportunity you're getting. Do you think Eleanor would be happy about how everything turned out? Maya looked up at the sky where the first stars were beginning to appear. I think she would be very happy. She wanted us to have a good life, and we do. Every Tuesday, Maya still ate lunch in the hospital cafeteria. She always sat at Eleanor's old table by the window, and she always thought about their conversations. She had learned that kindness was the most powerful force in the world. It could change lives, heal hearts, and create connections that lasted even beyond death. Maya never forgot the lesson Eleanor had taught her. Sometimes angels appear as lonely strangers, and the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected places.